All right. Today we're going to be talking about how to determine if a decimal is bigger or smaller than the other, or how to order decimals. Like we just talked about on the board, if I have a decimal like 0.1 and I have a decimal like 0.15, I want to make sure both of these decimals are the same length. So this has a tenths and a hundredths spot, so two columns. So I want to make sure this decimal also has the same amount. It'll make it easier. So if I want to add something here, I'm going to add a 0 to it. Now this means that this decimal has two spots to the hundredth, and this decimal has two spots to the hundredth. So now I can just determine which one's bigger, 10 or 15. Well, clearly 15 is bigger, so 15 tenths would be my bigger decimal, and 15 hundredths would be my bigger decimal, and 10 hundredths would be my smaller decimal. So let's read this math message, which is on the top of page 82. Arjun thought that 3/10 was less than 15 hundredths. Explain or draw pictures to help Arjun see that 3/10 is more than 15 hundredths. Pause your video and try to work through this by yourself. You can use pictures like these if you'd like to draw your picture out, or you can use actual base 10 blocks. All right, so you should have an explanation on your page. It might be something like this. 0.3 and 15 hundredths, so 3/10 and 15 hundredths have different decimals. So this only has one place value, and this has two. I want to make sure both of these have two place values to make it easier on me. This has a tenths and a hundredths column, and this only has a tenths column. So I'm going to add an extra number behind this, always adding a 0, to make both of these numbers the same length. So now I have 30 hundredths and 15 hundredths. Well, I know that 30 hundredths is bigger than 15 hundredths, so I'm going to make a greater than symbol. But if I wanted to show this in base 10 blocks, for 30 hundredths, I would use 10, 20, 30 hundredths, and for 15 hundredths, I would use 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Now take a look at the bottom of your page. You're going to be determining whether a decimal is bigger or smaller, greater, less than, or equal to. You're going to use base 10 blocks and decimals. So this one, if I wanted to make it easier on myself, I could add the 0 behind this 2 to make 2/10 and 12 hundredths the same length. Now this is 20 hundredths and 12 hundredths, making it obvious that 20 hundredths is greater. I also used base 10 blocks. 2/10, 10, 20, as well as 10, 11, and 12. You're going to work through this page. We're going to do one together, and then after you're done with this page, you will come and show me and see if you are working correctly. So I know that this is 1 100th, 2 100ths, 3 100ths, 4 100ths, and 5 100ths. So I'm going to put my 0, decimal point, and I know that 5 hundredths goes in the last column, the hundredths column, and I fill in the tenths column with a 0. To make this 1/10, I'm going to make sure I grab 1/10, and I can already tell that this is bigger because this would equal 10 hundredths, but I want to make sure that I am very obvious, so I'm going to add a 0 in the hundredths column. That way I have 10 over here and 5 over here. Well, I know that 10 is bigger than 5, so I know that 5 hundredths is less than 1/10 or 10 hundredths. I want you to complete the rest of this page. When you get down here, remember that this equals 1 flat or 1 whole, so that would be 1 point something. However, be careful because actually there are 13 hundredths or 13 tenths in here, which means that these are 10 tenths, and 10 tenths equals 1 flat. So it's not just going to be 1. think about what that could be in the end. Once you're done with this page, please come show me and pause your video while you do so. Great, you've moved on to the next page. On this page, you're determining greater or less than. This is going to be easier if you go through and make each decimal the same length. These are good to go. You have a tenths and a hundredths, a tenths and a hundredths. But over here, you only have a tenths on this side. So I'm going to add the hundredths in. Now I have equal length decimals. Do that for all of your decimals that may not be the same length. It'll make it much easier. See, two spots. It'll make it much easier to determine what one is bigger. So if I have a tenths and a hundredths, I need a tenths and a hundredths over here. So I'm going to add in the 0. And this one is also good to go. Work through number 1 as well as number 2 and come check your work. Pause your video when you come check your work. You're going to put these numbers in order from smallest to greatest. Now, you can see that all these decimals aren't the same length, so I'm going to make sure I do so. The longest decimal I have is a tenth and a hundredth, so I'm going to make sure all the decimals are like that. So this one would become 0.50. This one has 2, but this one does not, so I'm going to make this 5.50 or 5 and 50 hundredths. Now I can go through and determine which one is the smallest. Well, 5 out of all of these numbers is definitely the smallest. I'm going to look at 50, 55, and 5.50. Well, I know this one's definitely the biggest because I have a 5 as a whole number, and these both have zeros. Now I have to determine between 50 and 55. Well, I know that 50 is smaller than 55. Look, they were already in order for me. So I should have 5 hundredths, 5 tenths or 50 hundredths, 55 hundredths, and 5 and 50 hundredths or 5 and 5 tenths. You're going to do this for the rest of them. So take a look. This has 2 spots after the decimal. This has 2 spots after the decimal. This one doesn't, so make sure you add your 0 and put these in order. When you're done, pause the video and come check your work. You're going to want to put these in order to figure out the code. Now remember, these don't all have the same amount of spots after the decimal, so you are going to want to add zeros if you need to. Come check your work when you are finished. When you're done with all of your work today, you can play this game, Playing Product Pileup. Please read the directions on your screen right here, and you will play with a partner. If you want to play with a number greater than 2 players, you may. Here are the rest of the directions. Rewind if need be, and pause if you need to read them. And here are at the end. If you need to, check your student reference book, page 259, for all the directions.